back to a Pandas tutorial. In this session, I'm gonna talk about get column and row, loc and iLoc. Let's go! As you remember, in the previous session, we talked about the D types and the related function to the D types, and you can check the video here. But in this session, we are gonna talk about the get columns and rows and how we tackle with the loc and the iLoc function. At the first step, I have to import my libraries such as pandas and numpy, and then I import my data frame as a CSV. I said pandas.read CSV. I use a tab to accelerate my works, and I said read CSV. And because the location of my CSV is the same as this notebook, so I don't need to actually input the full address, so just the name of my CSV is enough. And also I want to print a df. As you can see, this is a very clean data frame with 14 columns and about 16,000 rows. And let's go to talk about how to work with get columns and rows. Okay, whenever you want to get one columns, you can just set df brackets and also the name of our columns. What is the name of our column? Here we can get and use df.columns. And as you can see, this is the name of our columns. We talk about columns, df.columns in this video. You can check here. For example, I want to get a column of, for example, date, that year. As you can see, this is the all values for date.years. If I want to get, for example, date.year and also date.full, I have just to add a bracket. In pandas, whenever you want to add columns, you just need to add a bracket, something like this, and add the other kinds of columns. For example, I said here date.full. This is the date.year column, and this is the date.full column. But this is not all about the get columns and the rows. Also, I can use it with values and indexes. For example, I can set here just I want from 0 to 10. I mean that from 0 rows to 10 rows. And as you can see, it comes from 0 to 9 because it follows the indexing rules. And also I can get, for example, just that values. I mean that just give me these values, not indexes. And as you can see, this is the values that I get. Also, I can get, for example, indexes as well. For example, I said just indexes, and as you can see, it said start from 0 and stop to the 10. But if the indexes wasn't just a number, it can give you all the name of our index as well. Also, I can get these values as a list. For example, I can set a list of df.values, and also I can use the rule of indexes here. For example, I can get the 0 index. For example, I can get the first one, or I can get, for example, from 2 to the end. This is what we can get columns and the rows just with the natural way of working with the pandas. But here I want to use loc function and iLoc function. What is a loc function? For example, I can set df.loc, and in front of the loc you have at the first import the number of rows. For example, I said that from 20s, for example, to 13, and as you can see, it gives me all the columns with the 20 index to 30 index. Also, we can limit it into just some columns. For example, I said that give me date.full. As you can see, it is just date.full. So we can add another column. As I said, if you want to add another column into a pandas, you have just to add a bracket, and also here you need to add the other name of your column, for example date.year, and as you can see date.full and date.year is here. Also we can use a loc similar as to get columns and rows here. For example, I mean that I can set give me the values, and I can also set that give me just indexes, and also I can give them into the list instead of just array, because as you can see this is a kind of array. I can put it into the list. For example, I said that give me just values and put it into the index and put it into a list, sorry. And also I can get each kind of values by indexes as well. For example, set index 0, for example the index 2, and for example also we can for example set a -1. I mean that the last index. But the important part of the log is related to the condition. Let me add another markdown here such as condition, and actually I bold this cell here because it is very important for us. Here we can set for example df.log, and I use a bracket something like this, and I put the condition here. For example, I said that please give me a column with date.year whenever it is equal to 2016, and this is the old data that this condition is true for me. If I want to show you what is the log doing here, something like this, I said for example if I use this condition here, I just get a true and false. Whenever I pass this true and false into the log function, it gives me any rows with the true values and skip the false one. But the interesting things about the condition in log is that we can mix different kind of condition together. For example, I want to add another condition here. We remember that we can put any condition into the parentheses because we want to separate the different kind of condition together, and then we use for example and here, or the symbol of or is this one. For example, I said whenever this condition is true or the other condition, for example df dot I don't know date dot month actually greater than for example 6. Okay, let me run this one. As you can see, whenever one of them is true, it gives me the rows, and here we have date month with one value because this condition actually is true. But if I want to use and here and say that whenever just both the condition is true, please give me all the rows, I just need to use and here, and as you can see all these date month is greater than 6, and all this date year is equal to 2016. But this is not all about this is not all about df.log. It becomes more interesting when you understood that you can get, for example, just a specific column. For example, the station city. I can get station just city here, for example just this one. And if you want to get another column, as I said, you just need to add a bracket and the name of the other column. For example station city, and for example station code. Just I use the name of the column randomly, so I can just get the station city and the station code. And this is not actually end here. You can get just by adding the values, something like this. Also you can get the indexes just by adding that index. You can get all the indexes here, and the interesting thing is that you can get it into the list as well. For example, I said added all of them into the list, And the indexing rule actually is work here. So I can add, for example, 0 here to get the 0 index. I can get, for example, 5 to the end, and as you can see, all of them comes here. Let's go and talk about the iLoc here. Can you imagine what is the iLoc stands for? It comes from integer plus loc. What does it mean? It means that, for example, I said df.iLoc, and I said, for example, give me 20 to 30. I mean that from 20 index to 30 index. It is very easy. It is as similar as loc, sorry. So I can use, for example, 20 to 30. So these two data frames are similar to each other. So what is the difference between these two? In a loc function, whenever you want to say the specific column, you can just add the name, for example, date full, date month, whatever. Here, it is very good for the occasion that you know the name of the columns. But when you don't know the name of the columns, or it is very difficult to write them, it is, for example, a very long name, you have just want to use the integer value. For example, you can just say the columns number 2, and it gives me the number 2. Sorry, we can just add it here, and as you can see, it gives me the column number 2. And it is follow the indexing value, because this column is a 0, this column is a 1, and this column is a 2. For example, I can get 0 to 5, and it gives me all the column from 0 to 5. Whenever you want to work with the pandas data frame and you don't know the name of the columns, it is good to use the iLoc, and it is similar to the other way. We can set, for example, give me just the values, give me just indexes, and also you can put it into the index and into the list as well. And I said put it into the list, and you can get for example the first one, or whatever you want. This session is very important whenever you want to work with the pandas, so remember to learn them very well, specifically if you work with a data science project. So don't forget to ask a question and comment below your question, please. And also, if you enjoy this video, please give me thumbs up and click on subscribe. Watch the next video, and bye bye.